Electric cars are all the rage at the moment, and the Tesla Model 3 is taking the US by storm. Kicking off from just $35,000 US, Tesla has rolled out the Go Fast red carpet with this car. It's the $70,000 Model 3 Performance, which offers 335 kilowatts of power and 640 newton meters of torque. But is it any good? We've come to the US for a 1,000-kilometre round trip to see how the Model 3 copes in a country with solid EV infrastructure. With over 11,000 superchargers in the US, it's the prime place to see how well an electric car like the Model 3 works. We're driving from the heart of glitzy Los Angeles to Las Vegas and back again. And to kick things off, we wanted to see what the Model 3 was like in and around town.
When we first drove the Model 3 in the States at its reveal, we commented on how good it felt behind the wheel, even just as a rear-wheel drive. They've stepped up the game here with the performance, because not only is it all-wheel drive, you get extra power out of those motors. Now, to give you an idea, I'm just going to pin this. It is seriously quick. It feels like we're in a Model S, a P100D. Like, it is very fast, and that's partly thanks to the fact this car weighs under 2 tons compared to the Model S, which is heavier than this. So they've done an impressive job here to give it that sporty feel behind the wheel. You've got 3 levels of adjustment for the steering. You've got normal, comfort, and sport, and they all adjust how much weight there is in the steering rack. But outside of that, it can be a little bit vague about center, and as the speeds pick up, it tends to track on the road, and it really doesn't give you that confidence. So the steering is something they could really work on in this car. The Model S and the Model X are available with air suspension, which nicely smooths out the ride, but the Model 3 doesn't come with that, so you just have standard suspension in this car, so you don't get any variability between the sport mode and the comfort mode. But despite that, it rides pretty well. It's on 20-inch alloy wheels, and we've got 235mm wide rubber Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, so plenty of grip there. But I'm keen to see what it's like in Australia, where some of our roads are certainly much worse than the smoother roads here in the US. Unlike a normal car, electric cars slow down using regeneration. The Model 3 is no different. You have standard and low levels of regeneration. So to slow down, all I do is let off the throttle and it begins slowing down all the way through to stationary, or I can use the brake. But that also increases the longevity of your brakes too, which is also good news for servicing costs.
Before we set off back to Los Angeles, we've stopped at one of 2 supercharger sites in Las Vegas. The screen tells us how many chargers are available, and at some high-frequency sites, there's even a valet to make sure you get a top-up while you're away.
We're about halfway now between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and I've got to tell you, this is really comfortable. Even without the air suspension, it's still soaking up these highways beautifully. And we're finding that it's just comfortable and quiet in here as well. You're not finding that it's over the top and droney. There is a little bit of wind noise from the mirrors, but it's all pretty straightforward. Autopilot is fantastic. We've been using it pretty much the whole way. It'll change lanes for you, it'll speed up, it'll slow down. It really is an intuitive system that you can take advantage of on these long trips. One of the things that'll take time for people to get used to in an electric car is range. It's a little bit different to an internal combustion engine. Where an internal combustion engine works really well on highways because it's using less fuel, an electric car is the opposite because it's using a lot of energy to keep the car moving at highway speeds, and it doesn't have any chances to regenerate. So we found that when we left Las Vegas, we had almost a full charge, and we've only traveled around 100 miles, but it's saying we've done 150 odd miles. So that is simply due to the fact that it doesn't ever get the chance to regen. We've got hills and all those kinds of things that really kill an electric car. But it's all about planning. When you input the destination into the navigation system, it'll tell you where you need to stop and how much battery you'll have at that destination. It even tells you how many chargers are free there. So you know you don't need to waste your time going there if they're all full. The roof in this car looks really cool. It's glass from the front all the way to the back. But we found when we had old mate Trent Nicolich yesterday in the back seat, his head was getting a little bit burnt because there's no actual cover there, it's just glass. So I'm wondering how that's going to do in Australia if you hit a 40, 45 degree day, whether it'll cope with that heat. You can get as an accessory a blind that sort of covers this up, but I'm still curious to see how it will deal with the high heat conditions in Australia. Just how quick is the Tesla Model 3 performance? Well, let's find out. I've got the V-Box set up. and I've turned creep off. We're in performance mode. I'm just going to stomp on the throttle and we'll see what happens. So here we go. Oh, it feels good. Oh, it feels really good. That was quick. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.8 seconds. That is damn impressive.
It's quick in a straight line, but Tesla reckons this will go head-to-head with the BMW M3 and Mercedes-AMG C63. Well, it is fast, but it's not quite the cornering hit they reckon it is, and it's a little short of the M3 and the C63. The suspension is a bit too soft, which results in the car feeling a little unbalanced when it hits mid-corner bumps. It doesn't instill you with confidence, and it feels like you're relying on the tyre grip and not the excellent body control for traction. But having said that, it absolutely hauls point to point, and with firmer suspension, it could actually do some damage to an M3 or a C63 at a racetrack. About halfway through the drive to Los Angeles, we've stopped at a giant roadhouse for a midway charge. It takes just 30 minutes to top the Model 3 up, which is enough time to grab a bite to eat, a coffee, and then hit the road again.
We're about halfway to Los Angeles and found this abandoned petrol station. If you listen to Tesla, this is the way cars are heading at the moment. Now, Model 3 in pictures looks quite small, but in person, it's got some decent size to it. It's just under 4.7 meters long. And if you look at this front section, it's quite short. And that's because there's no internal combustion engine, and it means that Tesla can push the front of it forward and it affords a bit of extra room in the back there. In terms of weight, it's under 1,900 kilos, which is pretty exceptional for an electric car. It's despite the fact this is the dual motor version, the performance version, and it has a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack sitting on the bottom there. Build quality, that was an issue that Tesla always had with the Model 3 as it started, and even here with this marketing car, it's not fantastic. That's out of alignment there. This isn't quite sitting right. This just sounds tinny and hollow. This doesn't line up, this doesn't line up. When you're talking about this kind of money, this is going to sway a lot of people's decisions and put them away from the brand. So let's hope they fix this by the time it does land in Australia. What about cargo capacity? Well, it's pretty decent. Despite the fact it looks quite short at the back here, you crack this open and it's just a conventional boot, not a hatchback. Decent opening lip there. And we've been able to stick a stack of luggage into here. It all just crams in nicely. There's a subfloor there as well that'll fit a small size suitcase or the occasional use charger. 423 litres available here and in the front. That's Tesla's word, not mine. It's a front boot. The other clever feature this car has is getting in and out of the car. Let's have a quick squeeze. Gone is a regular key. Instead, you have this little credit card size thing. This allows you to get in and out of the car and also start the car. All you do is tap it here. Car opens and away you go. Now, what if you don't want to carry that around? Throw that back in there. There's another solution. It is your phone. Now, this isn't like a lot of other cars that allow you to connect to the car remotely. Yes, it does that as well. It allows you to flash the lights and do all sorts of different things from the app. But you can lock and unlock the car and use this as a key using Bluetooth. So with that in my pocket, I can open and close it. I can also remotely open and close the car. I can summon the car. I can see where it is, see the charging state. This is a fantastic feature, and it means that you will never have to worry about losing your keys again. This is different, isn't it? It's not like a normal car because in front of me, all I have is a steering wheel, and it's a bit of a generic steering wheel as well. There's only 2 buttons here. I'll explain those in just a second, plus this setup here. But let's talk about the rest of the cabin. The build quality in here is really good. So while on the outside it's a little bit iffy, in here everything is really nicely put together. Every surface we come into contact with, it feels really good. So Tesla, big tick here for the interior. There's plenty of storage as well. So these things are magnetic. Just pull those out of the way. You have charging docks for your phone, and then under there, you have like endless storage all the way through here. This is one of the big advantages of having a car that doesn't need a driveline tunnel, and that continues in the center here as well. So plenty of places to put your things. In the back row there, surprisingly, there's enough room there for 2 adults to sit side by side. And with the driver's seat in my position where it normally is, I find that there's enough room behind there and also the passenger side as well. But there's a distinct lack of toe room. That's a big problem in these cars, again, because the floor sits a little bit higher. You can't really squeeze your toes under, otherwise you feel like you're sitting too high over here. But good headroom, and I love this roof. All glass, it just looks absolutely fantastic.
If we put the build quality issues to one side, the Tesla Model 3 performance has impressed us on so many levels. It's a quick car with enough room inside to be practical, it's easy to drive, it's loaded with tech, and in a country like the US where charging infrastructure is prolific, it's a car that makes perfect sense. It's not on par with performance products from Europe in terms of handling, but it's fun to throw around and will wipe the smirk off most other drivers from a set of traffic lights. And as the sun sets on our trip, we've loved every minute with the Model 3 and cannot wait for it to arrive in Australia during 2019. Well, hopefully.